Hello, Dave here. Welcome to MySQL Intro PDO, where we're going to take a look at the bind parameter method and take a look at it versus the bind value. But the bind parameter attaches it to this named placeholder. We'll go ahead and take a look at some of the effects, and then we'll take a look at the data tables and the actual code behind the scenes. So first, let's go ahead and just run this. I have a simple little form here, and I'm going to just put in Charlie for the name, and I'm going to put in C. I'll do lowercase, even though it's not case sensitive in MySQL, and I'll just put a C down below. I'll click select, and just echoing some values here, and it returns my 3 Charlie rows, but no rows in my other table. And that's after I change it to Tom, and that's showing the bind value situation, because I put a Charlie in there. So let's go ahead, but if I do Charlie for the name and I do a T in the extra, notice I get my 3 Charlie rows, and I also get my 3 Tom rows, and that's because this value stays the same because it's a bind value. And that's what we're going to see in a moment. So let's first take a look at the table. Here's our table structure. I just have 4 character fields. Nothing special happening. Just a timestamp at the bottom, and we're really using this name and this extra field. Then if we look at the actual data I have out there, I have under name, I have Charlie, Charlie, and Charlie. And in this extra field, I have the C extra 1, C extra 2, and C extra 3. And in the Tom, I have the T extra 2, T extra 1, and T extra 3. So that's why the differences with what I put in here on the values, notice that I put Charlie in, and looking for the T, well, it found the T in the extra there. But anyway, don't worry about that. What we're showing is the difference between bind parameter and bind value. Bind parameter does it by reference. Bind value does it by instant value. And let's take a look at the actual code to see the differences there. And we'll go back to the testing screen. Just wanted to get a feel for what was going on outside there. So here I have a PHP file, just that demo file that is running this screen here. Let me just bring this back to its original. So it's a simple little form, and we're echoing out some values from this database, doing a simple select on it. So we just have the basic HTML at the top, and here's the beginning of our PHP. We do a require once from my demo functions, and all I have in demo functions is my connection script. And you see I'm using NetBeans here for PHP because you can set PHP breakpoints if you need to debug. So NetBeans is pretty handy dandy for playing around with, and it's free for playing around with PHP. But here's the standard Pdo connection. And so I created a function. I have 4 variables coming in: the host, the database, the user, and the password. And I create this object. It's a PDO object, PHP data objects, and it has this string concatenated with the host, concatenated with the database name, and then the database and the user and the password. And it basically sets these attributes so that I get error information if there's any kind of an error, and it returns me the connection object so I can use it in the program. And then if there's any kind of a problem, I just print out my issue there. So let's go back here. So I require that connection script, and the first thing we do is we go ahead and I create a connection, and I'm going to localhost, Pdo demo database, Pdo demo user, and demo pass. And that's just the test names that I gave it. And if we look over here, right, Pdo demo database, and that's the actual table name, which doesn't matter yet because we haven't gotten to the table name. That's down here in the select statement. But anyway, so we go ahead, create the connection, nice and straightforward, and I'll have both of these PHP files out on davecoast.com if you want to take a look at them. So I'll have a little post out there with this code available for your viewing pleasure. So then I go ahead, so we go ahead and do a connection. Then if it's a post method and there's a value for select and extra input and they're not blank, then I go ahead and try and do all of our PDO activities. If it is blank, I just say go ahead and put in values. But let's go back here. So we made sure that we have some values, and now we can go ahead and I just go ahead and put those values into variables. You don't have to do that, but I do a variable for the name that's coming in. We have, let me bring this back up again. Here's our form. So here's that name, and here's the, I just call it extra. So we have two variables. And that's why I have name select in and extra input in. And we get that from our post variables. And we'll take a look at the form in a moment. Here's those two form variables, right? Here's the name select, and here's the name extra input, right? So that's what creates the $post, this $post associative array, so that I could use name select and extra input. Those names have to match these names here, name select and extra input. So those post values, I go ahead and move them in there, and I go ahead and put the wildcard character at the beginning of the end around the extra input so that we can have a useful little select statement. And if you just look, very simple SQL statement here, right? And I'm just putting it into a variable called $SQL select star from my demo bind parameter table, which is demo bind parameter table. And, you know, so that there are these, what do we got here? We have 11 rows. So out of those 11 rows, I'm going to take them where the name column is equal to, and here's my placeholder with the colon, is equal to name select, and my DP extra is like my colon extra input. So these are my named placeholders. I could have used question marks, but I prefer to use a name because it makes things easier to read. And then down here, you see where we do bindParam and bindValue. That's where we actually give them some values. So I go ahead and prepare a SQL statement, put it into a variable. Then I go ahead and issue the Pdo prepare method on this statement, right? This SQL. So this statement is ready to go. It is the prepared statement using prepared statements here. Then I do demo request bind parameter, and here it is. This placeholder is equal to this PHP variable. Now bind parameter does it by reference, so this can change in between each execute, and that's why we see down below we do it again down here, but let's not worry about that just yet. And then I do a bind value here. This cannot change because it's bind value. That means it actually issues that value immediately. So this is just a reference. So this variable can change where this is a value, and that's kind of what trying to demo that's the concept trying to get across. But we're associating this placeholder with this PHP variable and this placeholder with this PHP variable. Then I actually issue the execute. So this actually executes this select statement. And these two values have been placed in name select and extra input. And then I go ahead and echo that we just executed it. Here's what I had in name select in. Here's what I had in extra input in. And then we go ahead and look at the result, or set the result. We go ahead and fetch all the rows based on this select statement and place it into this demo. I call it demo result because it's a result table. And I create another variable called demo result row count, and that's doing the row count method, which will give me the number of rows that are available. And I can go ahead and just echo that out, my row count, so that we see how many we have. And if the row count is greater than 0, that means I have at least one row. I'm going to go ahead and just print in a human readable form with the printr those rows so that we can see them. So going back here, once again, if I put in Charlie and I do CEX, right? And the reason I'm doing CEX is the Charlie ones are the only ones that begin with CEX, right? 2, 3. Those are the only 3 rows that I should get. And I go ahead and issue it. So I just executed it. My bind parameter value is equal to Charlie, and my bind value is equal to the CEX with the wildcards on both sides of it. And I was returned 3 rows. And here's those human readable rows, and it just prints them off as the array. Notice it's an associative array, and it's giving me the field names here, right? If we look here, here's those same field names. Or if we look at it in terms of a structure, right? Here's those field names. Well, here's those field names as array indexes, and here's the actual data. You know, so it's index 1, index 6, and index 7. Well, if I come out here, index 1, index 6, and index 7. Those are my 3 Charlie rows. All right, well, let's go back to the code. And if we look at our code here, so now that's all done, and we finished that. If I get no rows, I would just show no rows returned. Okay, everything's fine and dandy. Now let's go ahead and change both variables to see what happens, right? I still have this prepared statement, and I've done a bind parameter and a bind value here. So now, if I change name select in to Tom and extra input in to TEX with the placeholders, notice that, let me just bring up the data here for a second. The reason I did the TEX was because Tom begins with the TEX. See the TEX TRA? So here's Tom, Tom, and Tom, and that's with the TEX. So if I come out here, and if I did just do Tom TEX, notice I would get 3 rows. Tom, 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 and then here I get 3 rows because it's the same values for both of those. But if I put in Charlie, or if I put in Tom and CEX, right, I should get 0 rows, right, because nothing matches both Tom and CEX, right? So both of them return 0 rows. And what I'm showing here is that this bind value didn't make any difference. If I do Charlie, whoops, I got to put something in both fields. I hit enter by accident there. If I do Charlie and I do TEX, right, I get 0 rows because there's no Charlie with TEX, but then down below I get Tom and the TEX because I put in TEX. I know that's kind of goofy, but the concept here is bind value, it does not update it with this TEX, or it does not change the actual, by doing this does nothing here, is what I'm trying to say. Because this is bound by value. So when I issue the execute the second time, it updates name select in to Tom, but does not update this value. This one is bind parameter, and it's by reference. This is by value. So one more time, for the fun of it here, let's just come back to our blank screen, and that's why doing Charlie and CEX returns our 3 Charlie rows the first time because it receives CEX. Then this second time, even though it's changed to TEX, it is still executing the select statement with CEX. And that's the difference between bind parameter and bind value. This does not change, so I can change name select all day long and issue executes, and it will update my placeholder here because it's by reference. But since I did bind value here, it has that value in there, and extra input is set this very first execute and will not change for this second execute. And that's the only reason I have this second execute in here. Then down at the bottom here, just a simple little form asking it to execute this PHP file using the post method. And here's our 2 fields. So that is PHP, Pdo, PHP data objects, the bind parameter versus bind value, and the difference between by reference and by value. Questions, comments? This is Dave at davecoast.com. I will have a post out at davecoast.com. It will be in the description of the video, and you can go to davecoast.com and I'll have a post out there. I don't have it now because I'm just doing the thing, but I will have a post out there for this video, and you will be able to view the PHP files out there, and or send me a message, dave@davecoast.com. Thank you very much for watching.